Good evening, welcome to Granada Reports, live tonight from Southport, where there's shock and relief that the families of those injured and killed in the attack here will not have to endure a trial recounting the horrific events that took place here last summer. Now, this area behind me became a focal point for people to come and pay their respects, leave flowers, balloons and teddies, along with messages of support for all those so deeply affected by Southport's darkest day. Axel Rudicabana walked into a dance class on this road, stabbing 3 young girls dead and injuring 10 others, most of them youngsters. Well, today, after failing to speak at previous hearings, the 18-year-old repeated the word guilty as the charges were put to him on the first day of his trial. Rudicabana also admitted producing a biological toxin and possessing information likely to be useful to a person committing or preparing to commit an act of terrorism. Well, our reporter Anna Yosef is at Liverpool Crown Court for us tonight, where the news seems to have taken everyone by surprise. Anna.
It certainly did, Katie. In fact, none of the victims' family members were in court as the trial had been expected to open tomorrow. Rudicabana had refused to stand or confirm his name after entering court, but just as the case was about to open, his barrister asked for the charges to be put to him again. Now, in court, that generally means just one thing, that the defendant is about to change their pleas. As each of the 16 charges were put to Rudicabana, who was wearing a surgical mask, he repeated just one word: guilty. He pleaded guilty to the murders of B.B. King, who was 6, 7-year-old Elsie Dot Stankham, and 9-year-old Alice de Silva Aguirre. He also admitted 10 counts of attempted murder, producing a biological toxin, namely ricin, possession of a terrorist document and possession of a knife in a public place. Now, this trial was expected to last 4 weeks. Instead, sentencing will take place on Thursday, and the judge warned Rudicabana that a life sentence was inevitable. This report now from my colleague Rob Smith.
It's rare a mugshot reveals so much. Axel Rudicabana was obsessed with death, the light of life absent from his eyes, unlike those of Elsie Dot, BB and Alice, the 3 young girls he murdered.
Reports of a stabbing and a number of casualties, including children.
The target was a Taylor Swift summer dance event.
Some of the faces of those emergency workers who've attended show the true scale of the tragedy.
The suffering in Southport that July day was inflicted by a teenager who wanted murder en masse.
It is clear that this was a young man with a sickening and sustained interest in death and violence. A day which should have been one of carefree innocence, of children enjoying a dance workshop and making friendship bracelets, became a scene of the darkest horror as Axel Rudicabana carried out his meticulously planned rampage.
CCTV caught Rudicabana outside his home before he took a taxi to the holiday club. Police learned he'd tried to get a cab a week earlier to a school where he'd been expelled for carrying a knife. When officers searched the house, they found a terrorist manual and the poison ricin. The poison wasn't used and the attack wasn't classed as an act of terror. Rudicabana refused to explain anything at court, refused to even speak. One former neighbour willing to talk on camera but not be named says silence was his usual stance.
Axel just glared at you, didn't really make comment. He just used to give you that stare, just used to stare at you like... Yeah, he didn't want to talk to you, just look at you. You got the impression he didn't want to talk, he didn't want you to talk to him.
This heartbroken town faced not just unbearable loss, but then more unbelievable violence. Riots in Southport and across the country were spawned by social media misinformation. 446 people nationwide sentenced for their part in them. But this community refused to be defined by hate. They put arms around each other, including dance teacher Leanne Lucas, among those Rudicabana tried to kill. She, his other surviving victims and families of those lost, now spared a harrowing trial.
The trial would have been mental torture, having the most harrowing details of what happened back on 29th July relived and read out in court and publicised much more widely. I'm glad the families have been spared that, but this isn't a day for celebration. This is something that we needed to get through.
What happened here can never be made right by any conviction, any sentence. But justice for those taken away was needed and is now a reality. Rob Smith, ITV News.
Well, tonight the Prime Minister said his thoughts were with the families and added that this is a moment of trauma for the nation. He said there are grave questions to answer as to how the state failed in its ultimate duty to protect these young girls. Well, many people rushed to their aid, and our reporter Emma Sweeney has been speaking exclusively to one of those helpers, Steve, who helped to get a number of youngsters to safety. She started by asking him for his reaction today.
Relief that he's pleaded guilty for the fact that families don't have to go to court and go through it day after day after day to hear what we already knew, that he was guilty. It was him. It wasn't anybody else.
There are reports out today that Axel Rudakabana had been referred on several occasions to the counter-terrorism scheme. We also know that the week before this attack was carried out, his father had stopped him going to his old school. What are your thoughts on that?
You can't believe it, but you can. He's left devastation to them poor kids who got killed, families. That's never going to be put right. Doesn't matter how long they put them in prison for, they are going to suffer for the rest of their lives. And they're the people I feel sorry for.
Do you think he could have been stopped sooner?
Well, it looks that way now, doesn't it? But as usual, it doesn't happen, does it?
And you were, on the day, you were the person who housed those girls as they were trying to run from that danger. I mean, you must live with that now every single day, those images in your mind.
It's been a bit tough certain nights. You know, you wake up there and screaming and seeing the kids, but what else would they have done? Say, no, you go away. You see kids screaming, covered in blood. It was terrible, but all the kids have been. They brought flowers, chocolates, my wife, all these cards off them. They even made their own cards. And I sit and read these sometimes of a night, and it makes me feel better.
Your actions that day have been called heroic.
Nah, I don't know. What's heroic about that? It's just what anyone else would have done. Simple as. There's no hero here. And like I say, my heart goes out to the three families who lost the children on that day. I just hope things get better for them somehow. How, I don't know, but somehow. Just hope things go well for them. And that's about it, really. But hopefully now, for me, I can put a lid on it. But they haven't got that option. I have.
And our deepest thanks to Steve for talking to us and reliving the horror of last summer. From Southport, let's head back to the studio where Gamal has the rest of the day's news.
Casey, many thanks indeed. The government's confirmed that it's had to significantly delay plans to rebuild hospitals in Lancashire as part of a major review of spending projects in the NHS, which puts a number of projects in the northwest at risk. Today, the government announced its conclusions, and our political correspondent, Leisha Manali, joins us. So, Leisha, tell us what's going on.
Well, to get to the heart of this story, we have to go all the way back to 2019 when Boris Johnson promised to build 40 new hospitals. Now, Labour say this promise was a fudge, that the plans weren't new, there weren't 40 of them, and some of them weren't even hospitals. But among them were ambitious plans to extend, refurbish and rebuild a number of sites in the northwest. The problem is the projects were only funded up till March this year, which means the government has spent the last few months looking at all the proposals and working out exactly what it can afford to deliver and when. Today we got our answer, and for the Royal Lancaster Infirmary and the Royal Preston Hospital, not the news they would have been hoping for. Boris Johnson said the projects will be finished in 2030, but today they've been designated as Wave 3 projects, which means work won't even start until at least 2035, possibly as late as 2039. The Health Secretary admitted the delay was disappointing, but it meant the promise would eventually be kept.
We will never play fast and loose with the public's trust. The plan we have laid out today is honest, funded, and can actually be delivered. It is a serious, credible plan to build the hospitals our NHS needs.
Now, there was better news for North Manchester General Hospital. That's been designated in Wave 1 and work will begin within the next 2 years. The government hopes by investing in the right places and working quickly to cut waiting times in the near future, that will go some way to outweighing the anger coming from some corners tonight.
OK, Leisha, many thanks indeed. Well, next tonight, and we know how important it is to eat healthy, and one tasty initiative on Merseyside is encouraging people to do just that. Nosing has one of the highest rates of obesity in England, with 3/4 of the population overweight or obese. And now, students in nutrition at a nearby university have launched a brand new Kirby cookbook to offer a healthy choice at the dinner table. Tim Scott has this report.
Simple, cheap and healthy. That's the ethos behind the meal samples being served up in Kirby today. They're all from the online Kirby Kitchen Cookbook, devised by locals here, along with nutrition students and health professionals, as a way of tempting families into healthier eating.
Recipes that are tasty, easy, simple, using equipment that we can either people have or we can provide, and reproducible and incremental recipes so that it's cost effective and it's all costed out, as well as with the ingredients.
Local GP Mike Merriman got the project off the ground with help from students from Liverpool and Liverpool John Moores universities, as well as local community groups. Jane Hoherty runs a group for mums attended by the likes of Kelly Wall. Both helped put the recipes together.
We're here in Knowsley, we're here in Kirby. It's such an unhealthy part of the country, isn't it?
Telling a mum that she needs to give a kid healthier food, they're not thick. They know about that. They know that that is what kids need. They're very, 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 switched on people here.
Cost was the main issue.
Was it?
Yeah, cost and time, because you run kids to school and then you're coming home and then you're cleaning and you want to just get them fed, because when they come out of school they're still starving, aren't they? And so you just throw something in dead quick.
My mum's group are never afraid of sort of being honest about things, and that was probably the reason why Mike chose to bring the programme to the mums, to get that real life experience, that real life opinion.
Basically, so it's more affordable, what we wanted as mums, and more healthy for the children, basically.
Yeah.
Something easy, something quick, something healthy, and cost effective.
The cookbook, which is free to download, features 26 recipes designed with nutrition and costs in mind, and it's hoped that going forward, real hard copies of the Kirby Kitchen Cookbook will soon be available. Tim Scott, ITV News, Kirby.
OK, still to come tonight. The former chorus star on a nostalgic journey into the world of punk music.
Well, we could do with some cheerful weather just to end January, but there's not much sign of that, I'm afraid. I'll have all the details in the forecast in a few minutes.
Now, with more details of today's top story and what else is to come in the ITV News at 6:30, here's Mary.
Coming up on the programme tonight, the 18-year-old accused of killing 3 girls in Southport admits to the attack on the first day of his trial. Alice Da Silva Aguiar, BB King and Elsie Dot Stancombe died following the attack at the Taylor Swift-themed class in July. We will bring you the latest from Liverpool. Also, Donald Trump is sworn in as the 47th President of the United States, promising to fix every single crisis facing the country. How's this for remote working? The job's on offer in one of the most extreme climates you can imagine. Well, do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Well, next tonight, and we turn to the tributes for a Manchester United legend. All weekend, football was paying its respects to the great Denis Law, who died on Friday. At Old Trafford, a lone bagpiper played for the Scotsman, who won 2 league titles, an FA Cup and a European Cup. His friend Sir Alex Ferguson joined his old teammates Brian Kidd, Paddy Crerand and Alex Stepney as they laid a wreath on the pitch and led a minute's applause ahead of the Premier League match with Brighton.
Just fantastic, and I'm sure there are a lot of older fans here who will remember and treasure the memories that they've had.
He's a fantastic footballer, and my mum was a big fan, and she used to go to the matches with her dad.
So my dad grew up watching him, and my dad's no longer here, so I kind of hope that when Dennis and my dad meet up there, Dennis can entertain him as much as he did beforehand.
In this industry, meeting a superstar doesn't quite live up to your expectations, but that was never the case with Denis Law. A moment in his company would provide a memory to last a lifetime.
When you found out they were going to build a statue, how did you feel?
It happens to other people, doesn't it? It happens to other people, it doesn't happen to you. And for that to happen, and with 2 of the greatest players ever, it really is a huge honour, isn't it?
Isn't it just?
Sir Robert was a very quiet gentleman. I'm sort of mixed with Best here, but so we were a bit more, I suppose, at it really, but not at it, but a few drinks or whatnot. So, but Bobby was quite, well, I don't know how you put it really.
The consummate professional?
Yes, correct.
Kept out of trouble?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Whereas you two went looking for it?
Well, we never looked for it. Sometimes it found us. I look really good from the back, you know that.
It's just a lovely
I'm not
image,
too sure about the front, but the back. If you could go around the back, I'll show you. Yeah. See, that looks like me.
It's beautiful. What was it like to be a part of that incredible trio?
To play with 2 guys like that is easy. After a while, when you get used to how they're playing, you know what they're going to be doing. Like when I ever see Sir Robert having a shot, I knew that there's a chance that the goalkeeper will save it, but there's also a chance that the goalkeeper will drop it because he had such a ferocious shot. So I scored a lot of my goals, which should have been Bobby's really. The keeper had saved it, and all I had to do was knock him.
As self-effacing as ever. The truth was, Best, Charlton and Law electrified the Old Trafford faithful for years. But in the changing room, it was a very different atmosphere.
It was always quiet, because I would be sleeping anyway, so in the, once I got my everything on by my shirt, half an hour before I'd be dying, trying to go to sleep, so I never heard anybody.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't want to know anything about the game. I don't really know anything about the opposition, who was a kicking you. I don't know. I don't want to get on the pitch doing nothing and just trying to play.
United's Holy Trinity became legends, yet Law was already George Best's hero before they'd even met. In 2015, Best's sister Barbara showed me letters handwritten by a teenage Best when he first moved from Belfast to Manchester. I had the privilege of sharing them with Denis.
It'd be nice just to have a read of them, yeah.
This is where he mentions you. He says, I've enclosed a cutting from the Manchester Evening News. Imagine my name beside the menaces. Denis got another 2 fabulous goals, especially his second, an overhead scissors kick. He also hit the bar with a fantastic shot from about 40 yards.
Never. I can't believe that. Lovely. I'll enjoy reading that, yeah.
How does it feel to know that this incredible statue of the 3 of you will stand here for the rest of time?
Can't believe it, really. Just fantastic, isn't it?
What was it like?
Mind you, to be fair, I wish I was that size.
In many people's eyes, you are, Denis.
Anyone who met Denis Law will tell you the same. His warmth and kindness left you feeling 10 feet tall.
An absolute joy.
But of course he was the giant.
What are you getting at?
Every bit as entertaining, as sparkling,
hang on, I'll just get a bit higher.
and as memorable off the pitch as he was on it. Mike Hall,
Lovely.
ITV News.
Yeah, remembering the late, great Denis Law.
We are being the worst team, maybe, in history of Manchester United. And I know that you want headlines
But I'm saying that because we have to acknowledge that and to change that.
Well, next tonight, to a man who played a very distinguishable character on Coronation Street back in the day. Actor Kevin Kennedy has now been out of the soap longer than he was in it, but is still recognised for playing Curly Watts. Today, he can often be found on the West End stage. Or now, he's in a brand new show called Pretty Vacant, which brings iconic punk songs back to life. He's been speaking to our entertainment correspondent, Caroline Whitmore, ahead of the opening night next week.
Jed, you're the producer of this brand new show, Pretty Vacant. God save the Queen! We got a little glimpse in your rehearsal room here in Stockport. What is it all about?
It's about the influences of punk music and the punk movement and the new wave movement on really the development of popular culture.
A new wave came in.
Kenny Kennedy, we're here!
Hello!
Hi. I love seeing you in the Northwest because you don't live here anymore, but you're back.
Yes, I do. This is Manchester. This is where life makes sense to me. Mum and Dad still live here. Hello, Mum. Hello, Dad. So.
You going for your tea?
I've been.
Oh, yes. And you are actually going to be back on stage in your home city.
Well, Pretty Vacant is basically for people who lived through that period of where punk and new wave had exploded, who no longer can go in mosh pits because their knees have gone, you know. And I'm the narrator. I'm telling what it was like then.
Sex Pistols, you can hear them warming up in the background even now.
The Pistols, wherever they went, something happened.
You were in a band.
Well, this is all part of it, you know.
With Johnny Marr and Andy Rourke before the Smiths.
Because of the things we'd seen on Granada Reports and the rest of it, we thought, well, why don't we start bands? Sat in Johnny's bedroom at the age of 14, watching him play was a privilege. Jed and I have known each other for 40 years. During the height of my fame at Coronation Street, while my colleagues were being photographed in headlocks outside Stringfellows, I was with Jed in a yellow van. Stock Aitken and Walkman. I was going, I need guitar music.
Yeah. Wasn't your thing,
no,
was it?
No.
Rick Astley and Sonia. I mean,
God love them. I mean, but it wasn't for me.
You've always been very honest about your addiction with alcohol. And
we have a charity called Kennedy Street, which is based in Brighton. And there's no shame in asking for help. But the hardest bit is to say, I think I've got a problem.
It's my career we're talking about here.
And I'm talking about our relationship.
You were Curly Watts for 20 years, and now it's over 20 years that you've not been Curly Watts. I bet people still call you Curly now.
Absolutely.
Do they really?
Absolutely. I find that very humbling. You want your work to be remembered.
I was watching something with Sarah Lancashire the other day, Black Doves.
Yeah, well, she's done nothing since she left.
Best of luck with the show.
Thank you.
It's so fab to see you here.
It's lovely to see you as well.
Punk was no longer a London thing.
Manchester was its beating and broken heart.
The good old punk days, and he'll be touring the region from next week. It's hard to believe that it has been 20 years since he left Coronation Street, but as I said at the start, many people still remember him as he walks up and down the Northwest. So yeah, the very best of luck to him and this new production. OK, let's have a look at the weather. Here is Joe with the details.
Why do I need a shower? I've been out in the rain.
The faster you go, the sooner you'll be out. You'll save water too.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Thank you. Hello again. Very good evening to you. The dull, damp theme with that cold, raw feel continues over the next few days. Sunshine at a bit of a premium through this week. And by Friday and into Saturday, some really unsettled weather ahead. Strong winds, spells of rain, but temperatures will be on the up. The next 24 hours, though, we have a trailing front across the north of England. And for us in the northwest, it means further spells of showery rain, lots of low cloud, mistiness and hill fog, and still that rather cold, purveying feeling. Back to this evening and overnight, showery rain across many areas, and with the cold air, perhaps a little bit of sleet on the tops of the Cumbrian fells. For most of us, it's misty, murky and damp, with Transpennine hill fog forming before dawn. Just about staying away from freezing in our towns and cities, but a really cold start to tomorrow. The sun will be up at 8:14 and it sets just after 4:30 tomorrow afternoon. For many of us then, a murky and damp, dreary start to the day, with fog gradually lifting. But for much of the northwest, it remains cloudy and damp, showery rain on and off through the afternoon. The Isle of Man faring a little better, bit of brightness there and should be largely dry. It's cold again though tomorrow, 5 or 6 Celsius at best, with that patchy showery rain continuing. into tomorrow evening. Looking ahead over the next few days, the weather not doing much to lift our spirits, I'm afraid. It's cloudy, damp and feeling chilly. By Friday, temperatures are becoming a little milder, but we're expecting a deep low pressure system to move in from the Atlantic, and that will generate some really strong winds Friday night into Saturday. We'll keep you posted on that. Enjoy your evening.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Joe, many thanks indeed, and that is all from me for now, but back to Katie in Southport. Katie.
Thanks, Kamal. Yes, to recap our top story tonight. The 18-year-old accused of killing 3 girls in a dance class in Southport has pleaded guilty to the planned attack here. Axel Rudder-Cabana from Banks near Southport was due to stand trial at Liverpool Crown Court today, charged with 16 offences, including 3 counts of murder. BB King, who was 6, 7-year-old Elsie Stankham and Alistair Silva Aguirre, who was 9, died following the attack at the Taylor Swift-themed event at the start of the summer holidays back in July. Well, tonight the Prime Minister said there are grave questions about how the state failed to protect them and said the whole nation grieves with their families. Tonight, our thoughts remain with the community here, all those affected by the attack, and of course, all those who knew and loved those 3 little girls. Good night.